another video on soda bread. I made it a few months back. I used the whey that I'd strained out of some yogurt to make soda bread. Very successful. However, it's not the only way, that you can make soda bread. So there are different ways. Normally you make it with buttermilk. I haven't got any buttermilk, so we're going to use some different things. It's nice with buttermilk. It's probably the best kind of way, it's because it's got more fat in it as buttermilk more than anything else. However, if we you can make it with lots of different things. So we have got some natural cottage cheese, which we're going to make the soda bread out of. Well, I'm going to make 3 different types. We're going to make it with some cottage cheese, and we're going to use some cheap low-fat yogurt. The cheap stuff's always low-fat. I don't know why. I prefer a fuller fat one because there's more flavour in that. But we can make it with yogurt. And then I have also made it with some milk that I've soured. I've just soured it with a bit of vinegar. As you can see, it's just split there into curds and whey. So, but we'll use all of that. I use vinegar, but you can use lemon, depending on what you got. Vinegar's cheaper. So if you want the cheapest version of how to make a soda bread, and you don't make your own yogurt and you haven't got your yogurt whey, souring milk is your best bet. It's a pretty straightforward recipe. It is, can I remember this? It's 600 grams of self-raising flour. I use self-raising flour. I don't particularly like the flavour of bicarbonate of soda, hence, so it's not really soda bread. But anyway, I find there's just a bit of a nasty aftertaste to it. So I use self-raising flour, and then I just put a bit extra baking powder in, so a teaspoon and a bit of extra baking powder. So it's 600 grams of flour, and then it's a good pinch of salt, a teaspoon and a half of baking powder. I need something else, hang on. And then it's 8, did I say 6 or 800 grams? It's 800 grams of flour, definitely 8. And then it's 600 grams worth of liquid. So this yogurt is only 500 grams, 500 milliliters. So we just need to add a little bit of milk to that, or a little bit of that, yogurt. You just have to make sure. So even if your natural yogurt, if you're making half this amount, and the yogurt comes in a 200 gram pot, all you really need to do is just top it up to 300 milliliters, 300 grams, with a little bit of extra milk. So you don't have to buy a pot, 2 pots of cottage cheese, and not have, and then have some cottage cheese in the fridge, which you might not use for anything else. So, just needs to be that amount of liquid. I'm sure it's that recipe anyway. If it's not that recipe, I will change it in the description. So, that into there, like that, and then we need to work kind of quite quickly. I'll just mix one on camera, and then we'll maybe I shouldn't do the cottage cheese, and then you don't need to see me mixing the other two, but we'll do a comparison and we'll see how they all look. Out of the way, out of the way, out of the way, and then is that bowl going to be big enough? Probably not. We'll use a big bowl. Nice big bowl, and then just mix around. Should make 2 loaves. If we need to add a little bit more milk, we'll add a little bit more milk. It's going to be a little bit different because it's it's curds and whey is cottage cheese, so it might just need a little bit more milk to bring it together, which is, no, it's alright, sorry, I've got it out. Yeah, so the curds aren't going to want to mix just as easily into the flour. Maybe I should have pured it up before I started. As prepared as ever. Right, so we'll just put a bit more milk in. Like that. And we'll see if that'll form a ball. what I do, if I need to add a little bit more liquid to things, I don't mix it into all flour. What we do is we mix it into a little bit, and then we keep adding a little bit more flour to it. A little bit more, until it gets to the right kind of consistency. Just a bit more. Getting there. Feeling alright. It should be nice with the chunks of cheese in it, actually. Right, that's feeling okay. So then we've got that bit of flour there that we just need to add a little bit of milk to, just to bring it together. That'll do. See how that mixes together. That's alright. And all that together. Like that. And we're going to make 2 loaves. So we'll split that in 2. Like that. And we're going to put it on a baking tray in the oven. So form it into balls. You can see those bits of cheese were nice in that. So you can just see the different flakes of cheese. I could have pureed it, but I think actually those chunks of cheese in there will be nice. So form it into balls. It's already started wanting to rise. So a bit more on that one. Like that. And then and we need to go through it. We need to spread some flour on top of it. So flour on the top. And then we're going to go through it with the knife. And because we've got some flour on top, it'll stop the knife from sticking. We just need to do it right the way through. It'll all form back together. As it rises, it'll push itself back together, so we don't need to worry about that. There. And there. And then we'll get a nice pattern on top. So, in the oven, 200 degrees for about 25 minutes, something like that. And it won't take long, and you'll be able to tell, and it'll be lovely when it's done. I'll mix the others, and I'll do them on the trays, and I'll have to remember which ones I put on which tray. But you get the idea. If you need to add a little bit more milk, you just add a little bit more milk. Shall we? Yes, let's. Seeing I'm slightly concerned that the recipe's just not kind of quite right, let's mix in. Let's do the. Let's do the. Where's my? Let's do the milk one. So let's use the soured milk. So we use that container. Measure, and then we've got milk here. So it's just off camera. It's just that that board isn't flat, so I don't want to use that. Slightly over. Right, that's about 500 grams. And we want some things in that. There we go. Teaspoon and a half of baking powder. That bowl again. That into there. And then this is the soured milk one. So I was just concerned about the recipe being a little bit wrong. So we'll see if we need to add some more milk to this one. And then we can adjust the cottage cheese recipe. I might have said cottage pie before, but it's cottage cheese. And this seems a lot more wetter. Yeah, I think with the cottage cheese, it's best off pureed. Or we'll see how it looks with the with the cheese in it. Yeah, the recipe's right. It's just the cottage cheese. If you're using cottage cheese, you just need to add a bit more milk. There we go. That's right. It's quite soft dough. But it'll be good. It'll be fine. Rub those bits off my hands. same process again. Dust your flour on top. Some people just score. I always go through with my knife, so I always go right the way through. I've just found it to work better. That one just slightly out of the way. Move up a bit. There's that one there. That one there. That one there. Yeah, so 600 mils is right for the recipe, unless using cottage cheese, and it just needs a little bit more milk. But anyway, so that's that. They can go in the oven, and I'll do the other one off camera, and then we'll have a look at them when they're all done. And we're cooked. So this is the cottage cheese one. That's the milk one, and that's the yogurt one. It's all very similar. I like the fact that it's crispy on the outside there. I know that's not particularly the proper way to do it. People just give it a score. I quite like the fact that it's proper tearing bread. Maybe a little bit too much liquid in those, but they look nice. I don't want to break into them all, but I am curious about the cottage cheese one the most. So let's just. Where's my knife? Will do. The dirty pair of scissors. Just curious to see. So it's nice and fluffy, nice and soft like that. Cheese has melted into it. Can't actually see any kind of. Oh, you can just there. There's a little bit of a lump of cheese, or a curd anyway. So, what does it taste like? Delicious, if I'm honest. So, kind of interesting that you don't have to just use buttermilk. You don't have to just use milk. You can use kind of anything you want. So if you've got a little bit of leftover cottage cheese, you've got a little bit of yogurt, and you've got some milk, you can mix them all together, combine, and you can make soda bread that way. Don't be kind of just limited because something says so in a recipe. Yeah, so I kind of think, yeah, you can always. Same with if you've got some cottage cheese and you've only got a small pot of it, just top it up with milk, and you don't need to sour it. Or if you just want to go for the cheapest option, the soured milk version is the cheapest. Cheapest even still if you use vinegar rather than lemon. All kind of different. Obviously your buttermilk version is the best because it's got some more fat in it, and fat kind of gives you flavour. But interesting, cheap. Haven't got any bread. Soda bread's the one for you. Well, if you haven't got any proper bread in the house, or if there's a bit of a shortage of things, you know, like we're having a bit of a fuel crisis again in the UK, so no doubt there'll be some problems with the supermarkets as well over the next few days. So if there's any kind of problems like that, if you've got some flour, you haven't got any, the supermarkets haven't got any bread in, and you haven't got any bread flour, you can always make your own bread, and you can use whatever you've got. There you go, easy peasy. No kneading, fat free. Although, right, I will add, it doesn't keep very long. So, whereas bread will last a couple of days before it goes stale, soda bread kind of is stale the next day, even if you keep it in an airtight container. It does go stale rather kind of quite quickly. Fine if you just warm it up slightly, but once it's kind of gone cold and been hanging around for a day, it's a little bit past its best. But there we go, soda bread. 3 different ways.